반갑습니다. 전주국제영화제 프로그래머 문성경입니다. 마스터클래스는 각 분야에서 탁월한 영화적 성취를 이루고 자신만의 영역을 개척한 작가와 전문가와 만나는 시간입니다. 제22회 전주국제영화제에서는 올해 마스터클래스의 주인공으로 드니코테 감독을 초대했습니다. 장르에 얽매이지 않고 독립적이며 매 작품마다 새로운 도전과 실험을 하는 드니코테 감독이 이번에 신작 공중보건'으로 돌아왔습니다. 이 영화로 하여금 다시 그가 현재 가장 독특한 목소리를 지닌 감독 중 한 명이라는 걸 증명하는데요. 평소 드니코테 감독의 작품을 좋아하시던 전주국제영화제의 관객분들께는 더없이 좋은 시간이 될 것으로 예상합니다. 오늘 이 시간에는 최은영 평창국제평화영화제 프로그래머와 함께 드니코테 감독의 신작을 중심으로 그의 독창적인 영화 세계에 대해 알아보고자 합니다.
드니코테 감독은 캐나다 퀘벡을 대표하는 감독이고요. 2005년 방랑자라는 작품으로 로카르노 영화제 황금 표범상을 수상하고 또 전주국제영화제에서 최고상인 우석상을 수상하면서 영화 이력을 시작했습니다. 이후 로카르노 영화제를 비롯한 다양한 영화제에서 수상하면서 세계적인 감독으로 자리매김하게 되었는데요. 올해 작품이죠. 공중보건이라는 작품은 베를린 영화제 신사 섹션 인카운터라는 섹션에서 감독상을 공동 수상하기도 했습니다. 공중보건 영화와 더불어 또 드니코테 마스터클래스도 즐겁게 감상해 주시면 감사하겠습니다.
안녕하세요. 감독님 만나뵙게 돼서 정말 반갑습니다. 그리고 또 오늘 전주 마스터 클래스에 참여해 주셔서 감사드립니다.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
네, 신작인 공중보건이 22회 전주국제영화제 마스터즈 섹션에서 상영이 되는데요. 전주국제영화제 관객분들께 이 신작 공중보건을 선보이게 된 소감 한 말씀 부탁드리겠습니다.
Well, it's very funny because in 15 years I made 13 films. And I think 11 or 12 of these films were screened in Jeonju. So for me, if I make a new film and it's not playing in Jeonju, it's always a bad sign. So I have to be in Jeonju. I need to meet the Korean audience. So again, thank you for inviting me. It means the film is probably watchable, you know.
다시 한번 축하의 말씀을 드려야 될 것 같아요. 베를린 영화제 인카운터 섹션에서 감독상을 공동 수상하셔서 전주국제영화제에서도 굉장히 기뻐하고 있고 저도 이 영화를 굉장히 흥미롭게 보고 이 영화 수상하게 돼서 굉장히 기뻤습니다.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It was a surprise to win something in Berlinale because the film is a very, I don't like to say small film, but we like to say a film is small or big because of the budget. So this film was made only in 4 or 5 days with zero budget. So it's somehow a film that we made for fun. And winning an award in Berlin was just amazing because you don't expect to win anything. You don't expect that you made a masterpiece. So coming back with a director's award is just amazing.
인카운터 섹션이 작년부터 신설된 베를린 영화제 섹션인데 굉장히 도전적이고 실험적인 새로운 영화들을 발굴하는 취지로 마련이 된 걸로 알고 있어요. 그래서 이 작품이 그 섹션에 수상할 만한 작품이었지 않나, 굉장히 도전적인 작품이었지 않나 이런 생각을 합니다.
Yes, well, I was there last year as I didn't have any film last year at Berlinale, so I just went for fun to watch films. And yes, there was this new section called Encounters, and I could see that all the press from around the world was completely attracted by this section. And when the film festival was over, everywhere you would read about Berlinale, it seemed all the best films were in Encounters. So this year, I knew that my film was not big enough to be in competition. So in my heart, I really wanted to be in this new cool section. Yeah, I think this section will stay at Berlinale as the cutting edge experimental section, and I can feel the new team, the old team from Locarno Film Festival now in Berlin. They really want to have these tougher films, like much more experimental approaches. And I think Berlinale will become a lot more interesting now just because of that section. Not because I was in it, but the films are very fascinating in encounters.
그러면 이제 본격적으로 감독님 영화에 대해서 영화 세계에 대해서 좀 제가 질문을 좀 드리도록 하겠습니다. 감독님께서는 2005년 방랑자로 데뷔 이후에 굉장히 이제 수십 편의 영화들을 만들어 오셨고 또 그 장르가 굉장히 다양하죠. 극영화, 다큐멘터리, 중편, 길이도 장편을 오가면서 굉장히 많은 다양한 형식의 영화들을 만드셨는데 이런 형식적 선택이 영화를 구상하는 과정 중에 어떤 단계에서 선택이 되는지 이루어지는지 좀 궁금합니다. 그리고 이제 보통 이제 감독님의 영화에 가끔 다큐멘터리와 극영화의 경계가 좀 희미한 그런 경향들이 있는데 예를 들어서 뭐 밀폭스 같은 영화는 픽션과 논픽션이 좀 경계가 없이 좀 섞여 있는 듯한 그런 느낌을 좀 받았거든요.
Where ideas come from is a very mysterious world, okay? It's very funny because I used to be a film critic. I'm 47 years old, so when I started being a film critic, it was the year 2000, 20 years ago. And the new cinema coming out from the film festival world and international cinema, there were the first films trying to reinvent language. And I still remember that a film critic, he created a term, and the term was the cinema of the in-between. And that term was all these films trying to reinvent the language and mixing fiction and documentary together and make a new form of language. So in those films, they would tell a story, but all the actors were non-professional. I think you will remember, I don't know, I'm thinking about a filmmaker like Jia Zhangke from China. His first film, Xiao Wu Pickpocket, you know, that film was very, very important in my life. Or the cinema of Abbas Kiarostami in Iran, you know. And I could feel that mixing those two techniques, documentary and fiction, was a new thing for me at my age 20 years ago. And as a film critic, I was writing a lot about this type of cinema. So obviously, when I became a filmmaker and I was much more active, the sort of cinema I wanted to make was that type of experimentation. I've never been someone who's really interested in Hollywood. I'm not interested in entertainment. I'm not interested in good classical storytelling. I'm much more interested by destroying the language, confronting the language, trying to tell a story, then destroy it and tell a new story, you know? So when you watch my films, you never know if it's documentary or fiction. And I like to play with the audience. When I was a film critic, I was defending that type of cinema and I was promoting it. So when I started my first film in 2005, it was natural that I wanted to blend documentary and fiction. So this first film, Drifting States, was the absolute idea of what I had in mind at that time. I wanted the viewer to watch the film and not knowing if you're watching fiction or documentary. I didn't care if the actors were good. I wanted them to be honest. I wanted them to be real, to be true. I'm not into performance. I'm not into great cinema. I'm more into trying new things. So since 2005, every year, I'm trying a new kind of experiment. So one year will be a more conventional film. with the storytelling, with professional actors. And the next year, it will be a small film. We try something, we have no script, we just go outside in the woods with one actor and we trust what reality will give us. And I make a film out of this reality. So a film like Wilcox, no rules, no story. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm welcoming reality to my camera, and then at the editing table, you create something. It's like playing with matter. It's not like writing a story. So I think there are two sides to my personalities: the storyteller with professional actors and the experimental person who wants to try something. So yeah, that would be my long answer.
네, 정말 그래서 감독님의 영화를 이제 몇 편 저는 봤지만 이제 다 다른 이제 지점들에서 흥미로운 작품들이어서 이제 감독님의 이제 영화가 더 앞으로 또 영화도 굉장히 또 기대가 되는 것 같은데, 일단 이제 감독님들 영화 몇 편 보면서 느낀 게 이제 좀 인물들, 캐릭터적인 측면에서 감독님이 좀 약간 고립된 인물들, 정신적으로 고립된 인물들이 많이 등장하고 항상 주변 인물들과 일정한 이제 심적인 거리를 좀 유지한다고 느껴졌거든요. 그리고 이제 윌콕스 같은 경우에는 거의 대사가 없고 어떤 한 인물이 계속해서 이제 떠돌아다니는 이런 식의 이제 캐릭터의 특징이 이제 감독님이 이제 늘 뭔가 추구하는 어떤 주제 혹은 뭐 어떤 방향과 이제 연결이 되는지 궁금합니다.
Yeah, it's true that Wilcox would be the ultimate Denis Côté character. Well, I've said in many interviews that it's true that most of my characters are living just a little outside the world. I'm not calling them outcasts. They are not freaks. They're just people a little outside of the community. Okay, maybe Wilcox is a little extreme, but in all the other films, I really like the idea of the community. So I like when people are loners, not necessarily lonely, but loners, individualistic. And they are resisting to the idea of community. Maybe I'm a little like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm in the film community here, but I'm a little bit outside. I live alone. I never participate in group meetings, but I'm not too far from it. So I guess I look a little like my characters. People who are resisting to the idea of a community, I think it's romantic. Rejecting the community, rejecting society, it is not really interesting for me. Resisting to it, I like it. So you do everything you want, but at some point, reality comes back and knocks at your door, and reality or the community or the police or some form of authority, they need to talk to you. That I really like it. I think it's very cinematic. So these characters are very appealing to me, but I don't like to see them as freaks or complete marginals. They're just people living a little outside the world. And I have to admit that I'm a little like that. I function in society, I'm okay, but I like to be a little outside myself. So it's normal that it's in my film,
근데 이제 감독님이 말씀하셨던 그런 캐릭터가 또 공중보건의 주인공인 안토넨 같은 경우에도 좀 그런 캐릭터인 것처럼 보이고, 또 이전에 이제 이 영화에 관해서 전주랑 하셨던 인터뷰를 제가 읽어봤는데, 거기서도 이 인물이 세상을 거부하면서도 세상과 좀 일원이 되고 싶어하고 어쩔 수 없이 일원인데, 그러면서 동시에 그 세상을 약간 거부하는 그런 태도가 마음에 든다, 낭만적인 것 같다, 이런 말씀을 하셔서 이제 그 인물과도 굉장히 좀 일맥상통하는 것 같은데 공중보건을 보면서 생각났던 영화가 베아트리체 없는 보리스라는 전작이었는데 주인공의 성격도 다르고 사회적 지위도 전혀 다르긴 한데 그 주변에 둘러싸고 있는 그 여성들과 맺는 관계가 두 영화에 약간 베아트리체 없는 보리스를 생각나게 했던 것 같아요. 감독님은 이 두 영화 사이에 어떤 접점이 있다고 생각하시는지.
Wow, it's the first time I hear somebody connecting Boris with the new film. And it's true. It's true. You know, it's written by me. So I think we always make the same film. Why would I reinvent myself, you know? So Boris for me was a comedy, even if people didn't take the film as a comedy. It's not my most successful film, but when I made Boris without Beatrice, for me, it was funny. It was the story of a rich man who's trying to dominate everything around him and he's being punished. And I thought it was funny. And I think I'm doing the same here. And it's kind of true that Antonin is surrounded by women. And what I think is really funny is I think Antonin, just like Boris, is a man-child. He's a man who doesn't want to grow up. He wants to be free. He wants to do silly things. He wants to say what he wants. He wants to stay a toxic masculinity example, you know? And what I find very funny is all these women around him, they don't move. They just stay like this. And they wait for him to grow up. And I think it's very funny. Okay, look, the film is not like a feminist pamphlet, but I think it talks about all these men trying to stay stupid and powerful. And it makes me laugh. Maybe I have a female gaze or a female way of looking at this, but I wanted to approach this figure as a very charming guy. He's a dandy, he's funny, he knows what to say all the time. And he's a little pathetic and he's immature at the same time. So the women are just waiting for him to grow up. So in that sense, Boris without Beatrice and Social Hygiene, I will accept that observation that they go together. It's made by the same person. So yeah.
한 가지 좀 비슷한 느낌을 받은 게 캐릭터 중에 공중보건에서 그 밀러 박사라는 그 주치의하고 그 보리스에서 드니라방이 연기한 그 역할. 주인공의 삶을 계속 압박하면서 지켜보고 약간 그 주인공이 약간 쫓겨다닌다고 해야 될까요? 그런 인물들이 등장하고 그러니까 소셜 하이진에서는 세금 징수한 로즈 조창, 그 보리스에서는 밀러 박사였고, 그리고 또 카시오페가 이제 중반부에 카시오페아와 이제 주인공하고 만날 때 이제 친구라면서 데려온 남자가 있는데 이렇게 주인공을 뭔가 감시하듯이 지켜보는 인물들이 등장을 해요. 그런데 베아트리체 없는 보리스와 다른 점은 베아트리체 없는 보리스에서는 그 드니라방이라는 존재가 굉장히 이제 영향을 미치는데 주인공의 심리에. 근데 이제 소셜하이즈에서는 이런 존재들이 주인공의 삶에 전혀 어떤 깨달음이나 뭐 그런 것들 주지 않고 방향성을 이제 좀 되돌리지 못한다고 생각하는데 이렇게 감시자의 역할들이 캐릭터에 등장하는 이런 인물들이 기능하는 어떤 기능을 하고 있는지 궁금합니다.
Yeah, interesting observation. Most of my characters are very stubborn. They like to be outside of society or the community, and it takes a lot of time to bring them back. They are non-conformists. They don't like to take part in the idea of society. So it takes a lot of time to go and grab them and bring them back to the world. But I really like to create films that are trying to bring them back, you know? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. So in Boris Without Beatrice, for 90 minutes, Boris is resisting. In a film like Vic and Flo Saw a Bear, the two women living inside the woods, they don't want to have anything to do with the community around them. Antonin in Social Hygiene, he hopes that people will forget about him and he will be able to live his life. I'm talking about my characters and it sounds a little like I'm talking about myself. I like to resist to all these rules and these codes of society. I have a lot of problems with authority. I'm not married. I don't have children. I only make films, you know, I'm stubborn myself. So obviously my films will look like that. It's an act of resistance, not rejection, just resistance. So it's a bit normal that you see these things in my characters. I don't know if it answers your question, but that's how I get it, you know. You know, I think it's important to say that I'm not a cynical person, and I'm not like I'm certainly not a misanthropic person, but I think human beings should be part of a project about humanity. They should have feelings, they should have empathy, they should have solidarity, but they don't have to fit in a mold. They don't have to respect authority. They don't have to reject things. They need to be part of a project, but it doesn't mean they have to be involved in politics or they have to respect all the rules we tell them they have to respect. So I would say I'm a humanist, but at the same time, I think anarchy is very romantic. You see it? So I don't like cynicism. I don't like misanthropy. I don't like dark characters who reject and hate everything. That is not me. It's more like resisting with a smile. My characters are resisting with irony, with a smile. That's what I like.
공중보건의 형식적인 부분들에 대한 좀 질문을 던져보고 싶은데, 일단 이 영화는 정지된 카메라와 롱숏으로 이루어진 굉장히 연극적인 미장센을 주로 사용하고 있는데, 중간중간에 그 오로르라는 인물이 등장하는 장면에서는 주로 핸들드 샷을 사용해요. 전혀 다른 느낌이죠. 이런 식의 구성은 어떻게 택하게 되셨는지 궁금합니다.
Well, you need to know that Social Hygiene for me, I don't want to say it's not a film, but it was really only about the dialogues, having fun with the dialogues. The characters are a little secondary for me. We're just having fun with the words in that film. And I really hope you will see the film with a great Korean translation, but I can't control that. But I hope it's going to be colorful. And so for me, these people are, they're not characters, they are concepts. So you have the wife, you have the lover, you have the sister, you have the tax collector. All these people are old concepts, being married, having a lover, your family. But Oran, for me, is the youngest, is the most contemporary character. She's hope, she's the future. She believes she's wearing contemporary costumes. So for me, she's much more alive, and she's confronting Antonin. She's confronting toxic masculinity, you know? So she has empathy for people. She still believes in something. She's utopian. So I thought I would give her a form that would be a much more dynamic. So I'm filming her in a documentary way, handheld camera. She dances. She's more free. She's not a concept. She's young. and I believe in her more than I believe in the others. And the others, they don't move. Her, she's on the move. She's future. She's hope. So I guess that's how and why I created her differently. That's what I would say.
그 아까 이제 그 오로르가 좀 더 현대적인 의상을 입고 나오고 뭐 이런 얘기를 하셨는데, 사실 이제 이 영화가 좀 다른 캐릭터들은 좀 중세 시대 의상 같은 거를 입고 나오잖아요. 그런 식으로 이제 그 방금 이 영화도 그렇고 다른 영화도 좀 그런 측면이 있는데, 시공간이 굉장히 좀 모호하게 어떤 시기인지 어떤 공간인지 좀 모호하게 그려지는 것도 있는 것 같아요. 그리고 이제 뭐 소셜 하이진 같은 경우에는 공중보건은 물론 이제 감독님은 이제 배우의 대사에 좀 더 이제 집중하는 영화라고 하셨는데, 굉장히 광대한 자연의 풍경이라고 해야 되나? 들판, 산 이렇게 보여주는 데 느낌적으로 굉장한 어떤 막연함이라고 해야 되나? 약간 고립감이라든가 이런 게 이제 느껴지거든요. 이런 식으로 구체적인 시공간을 굳이 상정하지 않는데 어떤 이유가 있는지.
Well, just in your question, you just said words that I really like: the vagueness, the ambiguity, as I said, I'm totally obsessed with only the dialogues in that film. So I think I wanted to abolish everything else. Like if I would make the same film in a kitchen or in the living room or in the bedroom, it would look like I'm trying to tell a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. So I decided to be extremely playful and play with time and space. So we decided to find these no man's land, large fields in the middle of nowhere where people have to talk about any sorts of stupid topics. They talk about anything. They are opening a lot of doors and they don't closing the doors. They just talk to fill the void between each other. They don't know how to interact, so they say things. So I decided to abolish space, time. Time and costume is a way for me to say that since forever, men and women are talking to each other without understanding each other. So it was the same in the 18th century that it is now. So I wanted to play with those dresses. So I don't think it's confusing. I just think it's very playful. You're not too sure what you're watching, and hopefully you're just laughing with these funky dialogues, you know? So I like to repeat that this film was really made very quick and for fun. And it's very liberating to make a film that you don't intellectualize too much. It's not a film that is trying to change the world or say something extremely profound on anything. It's fun. And I used to make films and thinking too much. This one was made for fun.
감독님이 이제 영화를 가지고 이렇게 재밌게 논다? 뭐 이런 느낌이 저도 되게 흥미로운 것 같은데, 그래서 좀 한 가지 이제 이거 많은 분들이 좀 궁금해하실 것 같은 질문인데요. 유령마을 이후에 영화들 두세 편 정도에서 전에는 없었던 것 같은데 화면의 일부 영역이 약간 블러 처리된다고 해야 되나? 이렇게 하얗게 날리는 그런 이제 뭐랄까 장면들이 있어요. 그래서 이게 도대체 무슨 의미일까 좀 궁금했거든요. 이 영화에서도 등장하고, 그래서 그거에 좀 질문 드리고 싶습니다.
I think it means a lot more in Wilcox than in Social Hygiene. When I made Wilcox, I was reading a lot about these people who decide to disappear and go at the other side of the world and try to reinvent themselves and find a new life for themselves. And I was reading a lot about these drifters, and at some point I could not understand these people, because these people, they don't want us to know who they are. They don't want us to know where they are going and why. So I knew that I would make a film that would be completely anti-psychology. So I decided to think about how should I film Wilcox. So I thought I will create distance between the audience and the character, and I will try to make sure that we don't understand this person. So I decided to create a visual obstruction. So when you watch Wilcox, it's made with plastic that we put in front of the camera, and it's blurring the image. It's very cheap, but I like the effect. And I did the same with the sound. I'm not giving you natural sound. So it's more like the interior of Wilcox that you're listening. And then when it was time to do social hygiene, you won't like my answer, but I thought the film was a little dreamlike. And I told my director of photography, hey, let's just do the same thing, you know. Let's try to give social hygiene a dreamlike quality. So what we did is we applied on the camera Vaseline. And petroleum jelly on the camera, so it's blurring the perspective and it gives something a little dreamlike. But those are just simple ideas to make the project more exciting. It doesn't have any deep meaning. You know?
네, 이 영화 후반부에 그 에그람틴 대사 중에 되게 재밌는 대사가 있었는데, 앙토닌을 가리켜서 좀비라고 하는 말이 있어요. 근데 이 좀비라는 말이 그 전작이죠. 유령마을을 좀 떠올리게 하는 느낌이 있더라고요. 실제로 그 좀비 같은 이렇게 죽었다가 살아난 사람들이 등장을 하니까. 그런데 이렇게 좀비 아니면 유령, 그러니까 삶과 죽음 사이 어딘가에 있는 존재, 방황하는 존재에 대한 감독님이 굉장히 약간 매혹됐다고 해야 되나? 좀 애착? 좀 그런 게 좀 느껴졌거든요.
I said in many interviews that I grew up as a teenager as a big horror cinema fan. But that when I was young, I was an encyclopedia of horror cinema. So I guess I'm getting older, but it's still inside me. There's something in my DNA that will always love horror cinema. So when I made Ghost Town Anthology, I decided to make my horror film, but I didn't want to copy all the other horror films. So the film is a little in between horror cinema and art cinema. So I guess it's following me everywhere. It's not that I'm not a spiritual person, but I like to think a lot about the traces we leave on Earth when we die. You know, after we're gone, what did we leave on this earth? And I think the perfect metaphor for that is probably horror cinema, but zombie cinema. The figure of the zombie for me is extremely romantic, because a zombie doesn't have to be violent. It's not like horror cinema, extreme violence or gore. A zombie is very romantic. It's a human being that can't control anything about his destiny. And I really like that figure. And in Ghost Town Anthology, I was using that figure to say that us human beings, if we're not careful with our history, our territory, our memory, well, other people or other civilization will come and take it away from us. So we need to be careful, or else we're all going to become zombies. So you see, the zombie idea is very romantic to me. I don't know if it's gonna come back in my cinema, but I guess that's why Antonin's wife is calling him a zombie, because it's stuck inside my head, you know. But you have surprising questions.
마지막 질문 드려야 될 것 같아요. 장편 데뷔작인 방랑자 이후에 벌써 2005년이었으니까 이제 15년 동안 굉장히 많은 영화들 그 기간 동안 좀 다작을 하셨죠. 1년에 한 편 이상 거의 평균적으로 꾸준히 영화를 발표해 오셨는데, 그 처음 데뷔했을 때에 비해서 최근에 이제 근작들을 만드시면서 그전과 어떤 다른 어떤 변화가 있다고 느껴지시는지, 본인이 이제 어떤 달라진 지점이 있다고 생각하시는지 궁금합니다.
Wow. Yeah, this question haunts me a lot, because I can see that other people my age, they usually don't make one film every year. It's very prolific. I know it's very fast. A lot of people sometimes tell me, why don't you sit down, Denis, and make one great film that you will wait 4 years to make, you know, a masterpiece, you know? And I'm like, I'm not like that. You know, my curve of ambition is not like this. I don't want to make always a bigger film like most filmmakers. I like every year to make something, even if it's very small. It's a bit like a painter. A painter will always paint, and he doesn't know if the painting he's making will be his best one. He's just making a new painting because he needs to express himself. So if you look at all my films, some of them are extremely small and forgotten, and the year after it's a big film with big actors, and then I come back to Wilcox, made in 4 days, and then Social Hygiene, same thing, 5 days. So I'm really not calculating anything, and I'm getting older now, and I feel less pressure to perform. I don't need to impress you. I don't need to impress the audience. I feel extremely free. Social Hygiene, when you see a film like that, what is that? You did not expect that from me. It's like a new thing suddenly. So I like to surprise people. I think I'm just dangerously free, and making all these films, I was lucky enough to pay my rent making those films. And I don't know, since I'm talking to you guys from Korea, there's this filmmaker from Korea, Hong Sang-soo, you know. He's an idol for me. For me, he's one of the greatest alive filmmaker right now. And if you look at what he's doing, it's 1 or 2 films every year. And the films are so simple, so fresh, so light. And you can feel that he's making those films like he's breathing. And for young filmmakers, and even for me, it's so refreshing to see that a person like that is making films. I think I want to be Hong Sang-soo, you know. So to come back to your question, I think I will go on making 1 film every year, and I don't want to feel pressure. I don't want people to tell me what to do. But I can't say if I'm really different, because I don't care about evolution or changing or being more mature. So I'm just free, you know. I'm not Hong Sang-soo, but I'm very free.
과거보다 훨씬 더 자유로워지셨다라는 것으로 저는 받아들이게 될 것 같고, 그래서 이제 감독님이 이제 홍상수 감독님처럼 매년 이제 영화들을 계속 많이 만들어 주시면 더 많은 작품을 볼 수 있을 것 같아서 저도 굉장히 기대가 됩니다. 긴 시간 이렇게 흥미로운 이야기를 들려주셔서 너무 감사드립니다.
I just want to tell people who've been watching this, I know that my films are hard to find sometimes, but don't be shy. Find me on Facebook, send me messages, and I send my films to people. And every time I say that, it works. People send me messages. I know the films are hard to find, so don't be shy. Just write me a message and I will send you my films. Anybody watching, so 감사합니다.